I tried to force the main villain to be my girlfriend, but she refused. So, as the school bully, I had people beat her up every day until she agreed. With just a small trick, I successfully turned Mu Cheng and Chang Haitang into bitter enemies. Chang Haitang was too afraid to leave her home, never imagining that Mu Cheng would plot against her. And this man, wearing a mask-like official expression, pushed a contract in front of her and said, "For the good of the company, just sign this agreement." Mu Cheng, Chang Haitang said, grinding her teeth, "You truly are an ungrateful wolf. I should have let that car kill you back then." Mu Cheng's face remained impassive as he watched her in silence. "I've put up with you for a long time. What did Yi King ever do wrong that you had to take her life?" "You're still thinking about her." Chang Haitang slammed the table. "Think about it. In all the years we've been together, when have you ever cared for me this much? There's still a photo of her in your desk. You're the one who killed her with your indecisiveness. You made such beautiful promises back then, saying you only loved me. Is this how you love me?" "You're insane," Mu Cheng cursed. "All these years I never interfered with them, mother and daughter. I watched my own daughter suffer and wander outside, and I was already filled with guilt. But you couldn't even leave them alone. You truly are a madwoman. I believe I have done everything I possibly could for you. Sign the agreement. Rest assured, I will provide Mu Wanning with everything she is due, but a woman like you, I don't dare keep you by my side." I didn't really do much. When I learned that Mu Cheng only intended to kick Chang Haitang out of the house, I was in an internet cafe late at night, lollipop in my mouth, hacking into the back end of their official website. It wasn't enough. Mu Cheng was too naive. He wouldn't be able to get rid of Chang Haitang. Even though he had maintained the company for so many years, he forgot that it originally belonged to the Chang family. Even without Chang Haitang, there were still other members of the Chang family. A simple romantic scandal would be too easy to handle. In the end, he might even be the one to suffer, bringing trouble upon himself. Having traversed so many worlds, my skill points were nearly maxed out. In this technologically underdeveloped small world, a website with a less than advanced system could be altered in a matter of minutes. The media was already eyeing the corporation, hoping to dig up some major dirt. When pop-up messages like collusion and cover-ups, deliberate inaction, and unjust murder appeared on the official website, they instantly went into a frenzy. Starting that night, the critical storyline that most affected Mu Wanning officially began its countdown to conclusion. My original estimate was 6 months, but now it seemed it could end even sooner. I peeled an apple for Mu Wanning. The injuries on her body had mostly healed. It was just a shame that her already scar-covered body now bore new, smaller ones. In contrast to my heartache, Mu Wanning appeared quite relaxed. She felt that a few scars on her body were nothing to worry about. Mu Wanning subconsciously touched her face. Thankfully, she had protected it well at the time and hadn't gotten it scratched. "In the next few days, I'll go to the company and get what your father wants." My hand trembled and the apple peel broke. My tone was somewhat detached. Actually, that's not necessary. I knew what Gu King was thinking. He wanted to ruin Mu Cheng's company and use that as a stepping stone to enter the capital. "Don't you want to have power and money?" I looked up at her, then resumed peeling the rest of the apple. "The Mu family is in complete chaos right now. If we just push a little harder, we can absolutely go after those things. There's only Mu Wanning left, and I have ways to deal with her." Before I could finish speaking, the words caught in my throat. Because Mu Wanning was looking at me, her gaze heavy with a hidden, inscrutable emotion. "I've never wanted any of that," Mu Wanning said flatly. "And I've never considered myself part of the Mu family. When did you start planning this?" Mu Wanning gradually became more aggressive, propping herself up on the bed and leaning forward. Or did you know all along that I was from the Mu family, and that's why you were so good to me? Are you after the Mu family's assets? I hastily turned my head away. That's not what I meant. I just thought if you wanted it, I would fight for it. I felt I had done something wrong again. It seemed I was too fixated on the original plot, always pushing her onto her predetermined path. Back then, was power truly all she wanted? But what could be done? I lowered my head and didn't answer. Once I left, Mu Wanning would be all alone again, solitary and without support. The mere thought of this deeply troubled me. I cut the apple in my hand into pieces and held one to Mu Wanning's lips. It's very sweet. Mu Wanning opened her mouth. Honestly, I never wanted you to get involved in that sort of world. I just wanted your life to be a little better. With my head down, I let out a long sigh and asked, "Have you ever heard the saying, no one can be with you until the very end, except yourself?" Mu Wanning froze mid-motion. She stared blankly for a moment, then grasped my arm. "What I mean is, life is full of surprises, but never mind, if you don't want it, that's fine. Your happiness is all that matters." Gu Shiyan, I've said it before, I don't like it when you hide things from me. Instead of letting go, Mu Wanning tightened her grip. If you have something to say, just say it. I'll do whatever you want, but can you please stop saying things that make me feel like you might leave me at any moment? My wrist began to ache, a faint redness already appearing where she gripped it. Faced with my impassive expression, the hostility in Mu Wanning's demeanor finally began to soften. Her voice carried a pleading tone, her words trembling slightly. The rims of her eyes reddened as she spoke with a grievance, her voice impossibly faint. "I'm truly frightened." Mu Wanning pulled me closer to her. "I don't know why I'm like this either. If you don't like it, I can change." "No," I reached out and put my arm around her shoulder. "You don't have to change a thing. I will never say it again. If you want me to study medicine, I'll retake the exams this year and go to medical school. I'll study hard, so please wait for me. I still want to live a long and happy life with you, all right." Mu Wanning looked like a child afraid of losing a toy, her vulnerability on full display. I found it difficult to say no, so I agreed against my better judgment. In truth, leaving the system was destined to mark the end of my life in this world. But there were other ways. "Then you must live a good life." I crouched down to meet her gaze and said with concern, "I like people who are kind and pure of heart." Mu Wanning's expression froze. She felt as if my gaze had pierced through the filth in her heart, stinging her with pain. Pure and kind, she was not even remotely close to being either of those things. Mu Wanning had no idea what kind of person that was, but if I liked it, she would learn to be one. Mu Wanning's method was effective. Mu Cheng trusted her completely. She entered Mu Cheng's office with ease and inserted the USB drive into his computer just as he was leaving. Throughout the process, Mu Wanning remained calm and composed. Only when the screen indicated completion did she remove the USB drive, her mission a success. All of Chang Haitang's secrets were exposed. On the day of the court hearing, Mu Wanning also went to watch in secret. That once elegant woman had grown haggard in a short period of time. Her mother's death had not been revealed. This court hearing concerned another past incident dug up by reporters. It was another of Mu Cheng's romantic debts. The girl, 7 months pregnant, died on the operating table. The methods were almost identical. She was only 19 when she passed. "Let's go." I took Mu Wanning's hand upon hearing that Chang Haitang was sentenced to 10 years. In any case, she got what she deserved. I said softly, "The law never lets a single wrongdoer go, does it?" Mu Wanning said nothing. She understood very well that without me, the justice that was due would not have come so swiftly. I walked out of the hall and stretched, only to be embraced from behind by Mu Wanning a second later. Her voice was low as she said one word, "Thank you." Just as she spoke, the system prompted that her corruption value had dropped to 30. I turned and lowered my head, kissing the corner of her lips. "You should thank yourself too." I smiled faintly. Life was so bitter before, but you endured it. I reached out and ruffled her hair. "You've been through a lot." I also had to thank Mu Wanning for the mercy of not killing me, and for giving me the chance to complete my mission. Gu King got what he wanted. He publicly announced Mu Wanning's identity as my fiancé and promised to hold a wedding for them upon their university graduation. That very night, the Mu Corporation fell into crisis. Mu Cheng's computer contained too much illicit information, which Gu King traded with Mu Cheng's rivals for a foothold in the capital. When Mu Wanning heard her father was imprisoned for tax evasion and bribing officials, she remained completely cold and was even more indifferent upon hearing that Mu Cheng wanted to see her. She told the messenger that she had never intended to acknowledge Mu Cheng as her father, and that his very existence disgusted her. Now Mu Wanning held my hand as we strolled down the street. "By the way, are you sure you don't want to fight for the Mu family's assets?" "I won't fight for what isn't mine," Mu Wanning said. She turned to look at me. "We don't take things from others, but if there's something you really want, I'll work hard for it." At her words, I pursed my lips. "If you don't want it, then fine. The Mu family is just an empty shell now anyway." Mu Qian's mother was gone, and Mu Wanning's corruption value was hovering around 5. The people she sought revenge against had all met their deserved end, hadn't they? "I'm planning to go through the procedures to withdraw from school soon," said Mu Wanning. "I'm going to retake the university entrance exams this year." "Why?" "I'm going to study medicine." Mu Wanning pinched my cheek. "There may be doctors everywhere, but I don't trust them to treat you." "There's no need," I said after a moment's thought. Mu Wanning frowned. "Weren't you the one who said it? That you wanted me to study medicine, that a doctor's white coat would suit me. But I've changed my mind now. I want you to study something you like." "What you need is what I like," Mu Wanning replied, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Seeing how insistent she was, I paused for a moment. "I'll talk to my dad. With your grades, it should be easy to find some connections and transfer, right? I don't want to rely on others." No matter how much Mu Wanning changed, the pride in her bones was still there. I didn't insist. Leaving was fine too. It would completely sever the ties with Lin Zixuan and Shen Yu. "I'll listen to you." I rented a house nearby. The counselors were very disappointed by Mu Wanning's application to drop out, but no one could change her mind. Every day I would go to class, and every day I'd come back to see Mu Wanning either working on college entrance, exam problems, or reading medical books. The days passed, but the moment her blackening value cleared to 0 never came. Tell me, what lingering obsession could she possibly still have? I couldn't figure it out. I asked the little assistant, but the little assistant didn't know either. Suffering from a lack of points, I could only lie in bed, tossing and turning, thinking about the plot from the original story. Things had reached a stalemate, and I felt quite helpless. In the blink of an eye, half of the 6 months had passed, and the weather was gradually growing colder. Seeing I had to go to school early, Mu Wanning brought a coat and draped it over my shoulders. "What do you want for lunch?" "You're so thoughtful," I said, putting my arm around her waist. "Just make whatever you want. I like anything you cook." Mu Wanning chuckled. "I'll wait for you at home. Pick up a bottle of your favorite jam on your way back." I nodded. Mu Wanning fastened my buttons one by one, all the way to the top, then smoothed my somewhat messy short hair. I kissed her cheek. "All right, I'm off." Reluctantly, I took a few steps back. Mu Wanning waved at me, then watched as I slipped into the elevator. At the thought of becoming my wife in the future, Mu Wanning felt a strange and fearful emotion stirring within her. She was afraid she wouldn't be able to take good care of me, afraid that things were going too smoothly and that the price to pay later would be too heavy. I didn't care about how things were progressing between Shen Yu and Lin Zixuan. Once I moved out of the dorm, and with the three of us in different classes, our paths barely crossed. It wasn't as if they were on greeting terms anyway, so even the pretense of pleasantries was spared. I went to the supermarket right after class. It looked like it was going to rain, and the autumn wind was bone-chilling. Rubbing my hands together, I was idly pushing a shopping cart when I suddenly heard people arguing in the next aisle. I glanced over and froze on the spot. It couldn't be, could it? The man looked somewhat familiar. He had a scar on his face, a vivid red gash running from his forehead to the corner of his eye, giving him a ferocious appearance. I mulled it over for a moment, then abruptly struck the shopping cart. It came back to me. It was the first time I had seen him in this real world, but I had a very strong impression of him from watching the original plot in the system space. This was the thug who had harmed Mu Wanning's mother all those years ago. Back then, he was unbelievably arrogant, but I don't recall Mu Wanning ever seeking revenge on him. Could it be that Mu Wanning's darkening value was tied to this man? The man was arguing with a sales associate. I nonchalantly lingered nearby, secretly eavesdropping on their meaningless conversation. I grabbed a few random items, and as soon as I saw the man was about to leave, I immediately followed him. After paying, I carried my few items and quietly trailed him. When he got into a car, I called my family's driver to follow behind. The driver was completely baffled, but he had to carry out the young master's orders. The man twisted and turned until he reached a dilapidated bungalow. I don't know what happened, but a woman's wails, accompanied by the sound of things being thrown and smashed, came from inside. Without a moment's hesitation, I dialed 110. "Officer, there's a fight here. A man is chasing and beating a woman. He's going to kill her. We're at 74 Qingjang Road. Please, you have to come quickly. The woman looks like she's not going to make it." After making the call, I had the driver move the car to a corner and waited until the police arrived. A short while later, the man was brought out. I quickly snapped a photo to show off to Mu Wanning later. The moment her darkening value drops to 0, I can apply to leave this world. Mu Wanning had already checked my class schedule. I was 2 hours later than usual. She frowned, just about to make a call, when she heard a noise at the door. The food was already cold, but I didn't mind at all. I went to the kitchen, snuck a couple of bites, and returned to my bedroom. "Hey, I saw something interesting on my way here just now, and I wanted to share it with you." Mu Wanning seemed a bit helpless as she let out a sigh. "Why didn't you tell me? You just went off quietly to watch the commotion. I was worried something had happened to you." What could possibly happen to me? I thought she was acting a bit strange. I glanced at her and took out my phone. I just saw a man hitting his wife, so I called the police. And let me tell you, the police were surprisingly efficient. They have absolutely no tolerance for even the possibility of a crime. It was so comical seeing him get dragged away. Grinning, I held up my phone to show Mu Wanning. Mu Wanning's pupils constricted. Before I had a chance to rejoice, I heard a notification: villain's corruption level 90. "Gu Shiyan, where did you see this man?" Mu Wanning looked at me, her expression calm. A saying suddenly came to my mind: the sea is always deceptively calm before a storm. I swallowed nervously, the words stumbling out of my mouth. "You don't know him, do you? If you're looking for him, you'll probably have to check the police station. He didn't seem like a good guy to me. I doubt he'll be getting out of there anytime soon. Where did you see him? I shrank back slightly. Mu Wanning took a step toward me. What were you doing in a place like that? I was bored, just wandering around aimlessly. I lied without batting an eye. Mu Wanning studied me for a long moment, then sighed. The corruption level dropped as well, settling at the 50-point threshold. I had never been so thankful for the number 50 in my life. But one thing was certain, Mu Wanning's corruption level had nothing to do with past events. Go wash your hands, it's time to eat. Mu Wanning had already set out the chopsticks. After a moment, she added, if you're going to be home late next time, remember to let me know. No matter what happens, you must report it to me immediately. After saying this, Mu Wanning frowned. Am I being a little too controlling? No, not at all. This is good, I said hurriedly. A desire to control, possessiveness, and obsession, these three things combined were Mu Wanning. I never expected Mu Wanning to change at all. It was best for her to just be herself. Besides, it had nothing to do with me. She didn't speak, but sat across the table, silently lost in thought. It was only through observation that I realized Mu Wanning had been spacing out frequently lately. Her mood was erratic, and the affinity score reports came nearly 3 times a day, and that was considered infrequent. Fortunately, her affinity score had never dropped below 50. I went on to talk about some trivial matters from school. Mu Wanning suddenly looked up and interjected. Is it delicious? Yes, it is. I bit down on my chopsticks. Mu Wanning frowned. Then why isn't it enough to shut your mouth? The atmosphere turned icy. I pondered for a moment. Do you think I'm annoying? Mu Wanning placed her chopsticks to the side, her gaze lowered. I don't like it when you praise others, not at all. She was extremely insecure, rubbing the space between her eyebrows. I'm full. I'll clear the dishes in a moment. I'll take you to school this afternoon. I had no idea what I had said wrong. I could only watch helplessly as Mu Wanning left the table. I shoveled a mouthful of food into my mouth. I suppose Mu Wanning's way of thinking wasn't like that of a normal person. Mu Wanning said she would take me, and she walked me right to the classroom door. There, I finally saw the classmate I had been mentioning so often recently. The girl was indeed very pretty, with a good figure, and she smiled the moment she saw me. A cryptic, cold smile touched the corner of Mu Wanning's lips, and she let out a soft scoff. I had praised the girl's sense of style, and also mentioned that she seemed very aloof and didn't have many friends, but she was always very warm towards me. Today, talk turned to the exam, and I mentioned how she breezed through the questions and even passed me the answers. Mu Wanning's expression soured. I probably hadn't realized at all that I had been paying an excessive amount of attention to this classmate. Mu Wanning looked the girl up and down with an unfriendly gaze, then pulled me over and kissed me on the forehead. Go on, study hard. My classmates all knew I had a beautiful girlfriend, and seeing her today, they saw she was truly remarkable. They couldn't help but feel like they were witnessing a public display of affection, sighing in envy. I smiled and agreed, waving my hand. Well, I'm going to class now. Wait a moment. She suddenly seemed to think of something, walked away quickly, and returned a moment later with a bottle of room temperature green tea. I don't want to drink this. Then just look at it. Here, go to class. Mu Wanning gave me a gentle push, but she didn't leave right away. She stood leaning against the doorway with her hands in her pockets, her eyes never leaving the other girl. It wasn't until the teacher arrived that Mu Wanning finally left. Holding the bottle of green tea, I was still wondering what Mu Wanning meant by it. Your girlfriend was looking at me so fiercely just now. Seeing that Mu Wanning had left, the girl turned around from the front row. Gu Shiyan, does your girlfriend have a bad temper? I was taken aback for a moment before I understood. Why would you think that? We girls understand other girls best. Have you two just started dating? I looked at the green tea in my hand and seemed to understand something. The girl continued, right now, she still treats you like a treasure. Just wait, after a while, her true temper will come out. You see, she's so hostile to a stranger. Her attitude toward her boyfriend in the future can't be much better. Listening to this line of reasoning, I nodded. I handed over the green tea that was in my hand. The girl was stunned. I just smiled. My girlfriend bought this for you. But that girl was right about one thing. Girls understand girls best. My Mu Wanning saw right through her true nature at a single glance. As if sensing she was on my mind, Mu Wanning looked up from her desk by the window. The curtains stirred slightly, letting in gentle rays of sunlight. She reached out her hand, and the light slipped into her palm. But light cannot be held. What about Gu Shiyan, then? She opened her palm again, gazing at her fingertips bathed in the light. Would he stay quietly in the palm of her hand for a lifetime? There were too many things about me that she couldn't understand. She felt a sense of fear. She knew I would never harm her, because everything I did was with such sincerity. It was as if I wanted to tear out my own heart to show her. What was his motive, and what did he want to gain from her? To this day, Mu Wanning still hadn't figured it out. Nor did she want to. This self-deception might have been foolish, but she still held onto a sliver of hope. For instance, the hope that I would stay by her side like this for a lifetime. What on earth was Mu Wanning thinking? This question had been troubling me for a full 4 months. Every time I looked at Mu Wanning, I had an uncontrollable urge to ask her, what more could you possibly be resentful about that would cause you to turn to the dark side? But each time I managed to hold back, telling myself I could endure it a little longer. Mu Wanning acted like the model girl, friend every single day, to the point where she all but wanted to carry me in her pocket to protect me. If I weren't on a mission, I think spending a simple, quiet life with Mu Wanning like this wouldn't be so bad. The new year is almost here. Mu Wanning interrupted my thoughts, suddenly blurting this out. I looked at the bare trees outside the window and nodded. Yes, it is. We've known each other for almost a year. As soon as Mu Wanning said that, I subconsciously started to nod, but then I froze, turning to look at her in astonishment, and said, You must have misremembered. We've known each other for 2 years. Mu Wanning turned her face away. My heart was pounding in my chest. Was that really just a slip of the tongue? I wasn't so sure. I keenly sensed a crisis. Can you spend New Year's Eve with me? As Mu Wanning said this, she turned slightly to meet my probing gaze, watching as I flusteredly averted my eyes and nodded haphazardly. She then added, just the two of us. Originally, Gu King wanted them to come home for the new year. But having been deceived by a woman and having raised another's daughter for nearly 20 years for nothing, he suddenly had an epiphany, believing I was the only one he could rely on. Although Gu King never spoke of his sorrow, his care for me had indeed doubled. When I said I wanted to spend the new year alone with Mu Wanning, Gu King was silent for a long time before saying, You young people have your own lives. Dad won't disturb you. Just let me know if you need anything. Thanks, I said casually. Gu King paused and then sighed. You're my son. It's only natural. There's no need for thanks. I didn't feel particularly involved in the school's winter break. Many couples were bidding each other a reluctant farewell at the school gate. Mu Wanning patted my shoulder. Did you move everything out of the school? Are you not planning to come back next year? My gaze darkened. That was indeed what I was thinking. I would be with Mu Wanning for the entire month of winter break. The goal was simple, to lower her darkening value as soon as possible to prevent any further complications. By the time school started again, the news of my death would probably have reached the campus. I didn't want my family or Mu wanting to go through the trouble of collecting my belongings, lest seeing them would only stir up memories. Didn't I move out of the dorms a while ago? I just hadn't packed up because it was a hassle. This is a good opportunity to move everything over. It's more convenient. I smiled and made an excuse. Mu Wanning pressed her lips together, not saying a word. As time went on, the festive New Year's atmosphere grew increasingly strong. Mu Wanning seemed to take this matter very seriously, cleaning their duplex apartment until it was spotless well in advance. I teased her, calling her a river snail maiden. Mu Wanning merely glanced at me. Have you been unhappy recently? I casually tossed a cherry over, and Mu Wanning raised her hand to catch it. She stared at me for a long moment before saying, "No." I ran to her side and bent down to look at her expression. "Did I do something to upset you?" Mu Wanning put down the broom, the corners of her lips curling into a pale smile. "I was just thinking that Mom can't celebrate the New Year with me this year, and I'm still not quite used to it." My body stiffened. I had forgotten. I had become quite indifferent to matters of life and death, but Mu Wanning was a real person. No one could truly smile during such a joyous time of upcoming reunion after losing their mother. I composed my expression and said in a low voice, "It's nothing. Life and death are a matter of fate." Mu Wanning shook her head. I wrapped both my arms around her neck. "But it's okay. You'll have me from now on. If you're willing, I can be with you for a very long time." "Really?" Mu Wanning didn't look particularly pleased or surprised. I nodded sincerely. "It's true, I'm not lying to you. It had better be that way." I realized Wanning was strange. I had realized it early on. Her words, her mannerisms. If it weren't for the fact that Mu Wanning's era lacked the high tech and AI systems for her to even conceive of such a thing, I would have suspected she had seen through my identity. I thought to myself, the system probably wouldn't be so bored as to make me win over another mission executor, would it? After waiting eagerly until New Year's Eve, I was stunned for a moment when I saw what she brought out. The events that transpired after I got drunk last time were still vivid in my memory. Mu Wanning methodically opened a bottle of red wine. "It's a fine occasion. Let's have a drink." "No, absolutely not," I said, quickly waving my hands. Mu Wanning lowered her head and poured half a glass of wine. "It's fine. It's just the two of us here." It wasn't that I was afraid of getting drunk. I watched as she walked over, wine in hand, and I instinctively flinched. "You're quite cute when you're drunk." Mu Wanning held the wine out to me. "It's sweet." As if, I scoffed internally. It wasn't as if I'd never had red wine before. That stuff has a serious kick. I really couldn't handle alcohol. Just a couple of sips would make my face flush. After one glass, I'd start to lose control. Seeing that I wouldn't take it, Mu Wanning raised a glass herself, sat down across from me, tapped the rim of her glass, and downed it in one go. "To our meeting." My heart stirred. Mu Wanning picked up the bottle and poured another glass. She was drinking so hard and fast that I quickly covered my glass with my hand. "You'll feel awful in a little while if you drink that. If you're going to drink, then I won't." Her words made my eyes narrow. She slowly furrowed her brow. "You really don't want to drink. Is it because you're afraid of saying something you shouldn't?" Mu Wanning said it in a half-joking tone. My body went stiff. When I drink too much, I tend to make a scene. I don't want to embarrass myself in front of someone I like. It wouldn't be the first time. I gritted my teeth and hesitated before finally saying, I can't drink. My health isn't good. Mu Wanning froze for a moment, as if she suddenly remembered, and quickly put the wine away. I'm sorry, I forgot. This time, I clearly felt Mu Wanning testing me. She must be suspecting something. Looking back at everything I had done, I realized every single action had its flaws. Any normal person would likely have doubts about my identity, let alone this high IQ criminal mastermind. It was a miscalculation. I pondered to myself. I could not wait any longer. I had to take the initiative. Success or failure hinged on this one move. I spent half the night taking care of Mu Wanning. Though she couldn't handle alcohol either, she propped her head up as the aftereffects kicked in, her eyes never once leaving me. Her intense gaze made my skin crawl. I reached out and waved my hand in front of her eyes. Mu Wanning irritably pushed my hand away. After sitting stunned for a moment, she beckoned again. Come here. I didn't know what she was thinking, but there was no point in arguing with a drunk person. But as soon as I walked up to her, she forcefully pulled me forward. I lost my balance. My hands landed on her shoulders, and I complained slightly. What are you doing? I'm going to ask you a few questions, and you must answer me truthfully. Mu Wanning's tone left no room for refusal. I hesitated for a moment before nodding. Mu Wanning took my wrist and slowly massaged it. Her eyes were bloodshot. The gesture seemed proper, yet it was incredibly seductive. She looked up, her eyes shimmering with emotion. Her lips were pale. Do you really like me? I was taken aback for a moment. And then I nodded. In Mu Wanning's eyes, my subtle action was an eyesore. Mu Wanning took a deep breath and asked again, Do you have some ulterior motive for approaching me? Isn't it enough that I like you? I had already grown suspicious, so I put on a stern face and forced myself to appear serious. Mu Wanning opened her mouth as if she wanted to ask something more, but in the end, she didn't. She reached out her arms and hugged me. Don't you lie to me. Mu Wanning's voice was very soft. The scent of alcohol and her hot breath swirled by my ear, making my face gradually flush red as if on fire. Feeling a tickle, I shied away. Her hand moved along the side of my neck. Anyone can lie to me, but you can't. Mu Wanning said in a somber voice. Why? I turned my head in shock, and froze when I saw her expression. I sensed a subtle killing intent. I have always been highly sensitive to danger, and this moment was no exception. Though I was in Mu Wanning's warm embrace, I felt a chill run through my entire body. Mu Wanning's voice softened, taking on a more tender quality. Because I trust you, and only you. Before I had won her over. My relationship with Mu Wanning was like walking on thin ice. After winning her over, I gained a new perspective. My relationship with Mu Wanning was like dancing with a wolf. Mu Wanning suddenly seemed to remember something and began rummaging in her pocket. I immediately had the urge to jump away. I was terrified she would pull out some kind of weapon and end my life with a single strike. Mu Wanning's hands were shaking, and my heart was trembling. I felt a sudden coolness on my wrist, and instinctively closed my eyes. The next moment, I heard Mu Wanning speak beside my ear. Gu Shiyan, Happy New Year. The sound of New Year's firecrackers erupted from outside the window, and fireworks exploded in the sky, exceptionally dazzling and bright. I looked down and saw a watch on my wrist, which I could tell was expensive at a single glance. I furrowed my brow. Mu Wanning asked, Don't you like it? This must have cost a lot, didn't it? It wasn't very expensive. It was on sale at the mall. Mu Wanning said, Wear it well and don't lose it. I didn't ask her where she got the money. Instead, I turned, hugged her, and nodded firmly. I realized something very serious. Subconsciously, I was still very afraid of Wanning. It was a fear that was bone deep. Mu Wanning seemed to be struggling to control her emotions as her hand gradually found its way to my side. Her eyes were lowered, her gaze evasive. "Can I kiss you?" After she spoke, Mu Wanning's face drew closer and closer to mine. My heart pounded violently, and my eyes widened, lost and unsure of what to do. The sweet scent of red wine clung to her every breath. Just when our lips were a mere centimeter from touching, she abruptly stopped. She looked at me and sighed. "Go to sleep, it's very late." My throat felt a little dry. No more kissing. So impatient. Mu Wanning chuckled. She set me down on the floor and tugged down the side of my clothes that had hitched up. "Let's wait, we'll kiss next time." "I've been drinking." After saying this, Mu Wanning went straight to the restroom, leaving me completely bewildered. I didn't know that after the bathroom door closed, Mu Wanning stared at her reflection in the mirror, turned on the faucet, and cried with suppressed sobs for a long time. By the time she came out, I had already fallen into a deep sleep on the sofa. She didn't know why, but she had a pressing need to remember my face. Mu Wanning brought a blanket and wrapped it around me. She watched me for as long as I slept. When I woke up, my eyes met Mu Wanning's, which were bloodshot from staying up all night. My eyes heavy with sleep, I opened my arms. "Good morning, girlfriend." I was instantly pulled into Mu Wanning's tight embrace, our hearts pressed together. Hearing those words in a daze, I suspected I was hearing things. The system's notification tones continued to sound one after another. My body tensed and my brow furrowed. Mu Wanning's face filled with worry. "What's wrong? Are you not feeling well?" I looked at Mu Wanning with an expression of disbelief, completely unaware of what was happening. It seemed Mu Wanning was just that kind of inexplicable person, always giving me a surprise when I least expected it. Seeing that I still looked unwell, Mu Wanning grew anxious. "You didn't have another nightmare, did you?" "No." I reached out and hugged Mu Wanning tightly, resting my head on her shoulder in confusion. I only hesitated for a moment. I deftly opened the long, neglected Point Redemption tab, and flipped to the section with the rarest items. Within it there was a feature called Body WAI. Generally, after a host leaves a world, the body they inhabited also perishes. Sometimes, to ensure the rescued world continues to operate normally, the host will redeem a body double to live on in her place. I had never used this feature before. For one, I couldn't bear to part with the points. For another, the missions I took were always for expendable side characters. With or without my presence, the world would continue to run perfectly. But Mu Wanning was different. I reached out and gathered a lock of her hair, and saw her look up at me with suspicion. "Wanning, I'm here." I pressed my forehead against hers, already prepared. She was full of smiles. "Aren't you going to give me a kiss?" Mu Wanning furrowed her brow, not understanding why I was smiling so happily. It was the first time she had ever seen me smile like that. She never expected that it would also be the last. I felt it was a great pity. I blinked, tilted my head, and asked again, "Are you really not going to give me a little kiss?" Mu Wanning stood up. I hesitated for a moment, then stepped onto the sofa to stand up as well. I wrapped my arms around Mu Wanning's neck and leaned in to give her a kiss on the forehead. When it came to leaving, I was actually a little bit reluctant. But only a little bit. I had to constantly prepare myself psychologically. They were just people in a parallel world who had nothing to do with me. I couldn't abandon my own reality for the sake of a target character. It's still early, you should sleep a while longer. I'll go buy you breakfast. The same as always, 3 buns, a bowl of rice porridge with sugar. I nodded. Get 2 extra eggs, too. Mu Wanning took her wallet and left. As she stepped over the threshold, she felt a pang in her heart and instinctively turned to look at the young man nestled on the sofa. I was looking at her, too. Gu Shiyan, I'm leaving now. Mu Wanning pursed her lips, her steps feeling heavy. Be careful on your way. I gave a small smile. The moment the door closed, I reached over for an unopened soda and mechanically pulled the tab. Someone must have shaken the soda, because it fizzed over the moment it opened, spilling onto my hand. A sweet and sour aroma filled the air. There's nothing so special about Mu Wanning, I muttered. She's cold, unfeeling, and a hypersensitive wreck. I tilted my head back and took a drink, my throat feeling a little tight. If I don't leave now, the mission might never be completed. I said, if I leave an AI substitute behind, it will take good care of Mu Wanning for me. Wouldn't you agree? I stood up and touched the watch on my wrist. You know, it's actually quite nice looking. I'm not sad to leave. After being provoked by the assistant, requesting to exit this world. It was so brief, there wasn't even enough time to finish a bottle of soda. I felt a tinge of regret, and glanced at the tightly shut door. I opened the Advanced Options tab and redeemed the AI substitute. When setting its attributes, I hesitated for a moment before selecting 3 tags: kind, sunny, and sentimental. I held the soda bottle, feeling my consciousness slip away. In that final moment, it seemed I saw Mu Wanning. The connection between people is a strange thing indeed. When Mu Wanning's mother passed away, she experienced a sudden heart palpitation and an inexplicable urge to cry. She had seared that feeling into her memory. For some reason, on this perfectly ordinary day, bustling with the warmth of life, Mu Wanning simply felt a chill. She was waiting in line, still yet to buy my favorite meal, when a sudden, dull ache pierced her heart. The pain was excruciating, spreading gradually through every inch of her body. Passers-by noticed something was amiss and moved to support her. Mu Wanning suddenly remembered my odd behavior from the past 2 days. Ignoring the people trying to stop her, she burst through the crowd and raced home faster than she ever had in her life. It was too late. The soda bottle slipped from my grasp, the orange liquid gurgling as it spilled onto the floor. Barely able to breathe, Mu Wanning slowly approached me. I feel so tired, so very tired. Mu Wanning had been standing beside me for a long time, yet I hadn't noticed. With a trembling hand, she checked for my breath. Faint, but real. What are you doing? Mu Wanning swallowed and knelt down. I was real, and I was alive. And yet Mu Wanning's heart felt utterly empty. Do you feel unwell anywhere? What is it? The young man glanced at her. Weren't you on your way to buy me breakfast? So, where is it? I had successfully reached the system's central control platform. I had to remain here for a while, as the system needed to find a real world that was the closest match to mine for her, and then send him there. Idle and bored, I sat before the large screen to watch Mu Wanning's interactions with the AI. Mu Wanning, looking as if she had recovered something precious, hugged the AI tightly. For some reason, I felt a pang of jealousy. The AI substitute took over my body, and with it, all the memories contained within. Watching on the screen as Mu Wanning tested it again and again, I felt a sudden, inexplicable palpitation in my heart. A guilty conscience fears a knock at the door. I was terrified that Mu Wanning would uncover some clue. I saw a large bouquet of roses floating towards me in midair, and I reached out to take them, holding them in my arms. The feeling of unreality finally subsided, grounding me back in my body. I was leaving. I was finally leaving. Thank you. I wept with joy. One should not become too happy, as extreme joy often gives way to sorrow. For a moment I looked away from the large screen and turned to examine my own real world. In this world, my identity was shown as a second-year high school student, with excellent grades, a kind heart, good looks, and a well-off family background. I wondered, why would someone like me, with everything going so well, be bound to this damned system? Before I could figure it out, I heard a system warning. Immediately after, the entire central control hall began to flash with a blood-red light. I scrambled over to Mu Wanning's monitoring screen and saw a scene I would likely never forget for the rest of my life. The AI substitute on the screen was still sound asleep as Mu Wanning lay beside him, stroking his cheek over and over. Her movements were large, yet the AI did not stir. Mu Wanning removed the watch from his wrist, leaned down and said, "You lied to me, Shiyan." My heart suddenly skipped a beat. What did I do wrong? Why do you want to leave me? I was dumbfounded, and hurriedly asked, "What happened? How did Mu Wanning become like this? What is she talking about?" I had no way to return to that world to stop anything, and could only watch as Mu Wanning's hands closed around the substitute AI's neck. Her gaze was frighteningly cold. I clutched my head and wept. What on earth was this? Even if the system malfunctioned, it shouldn't have produced such absurd data. I think I understand your purpose. Mu Wanning didn't tighten her grip. She looked up sharply, her eyes fixed directly on the screen. "I'll give you 5 minutes. If I don't see you, I will grant your wish." Grant my wish? What wish? I was already frantic with worry. After reading the files on Mu Wanning and spending so much time with her, I couldn't claim to understand her completely, but I knew exactly what she was thinking right now.